Hello, Carm3D with you on the tube. Today I want to just run through lots of the stuff that I covered in class that I once again want to apologize for being late. So a couple of you left. I want to cover everything that you missed by not being there. And even, we had one student who was on vacation, so he can catch up with us as well. Bonus. Alright, so here's the new character model. As you can see, when it imports the OBJ format, it breaks up the various surfaces into separate objects. You can see here, here's a skin, here's a shorts. So I'm going to show you how you can merge these two together. So I'm going to click and control click on these two guys and use connect objects and delete. So it basically makes a new object where they're connected and deletes the two old guys. Notice that whenever you do that, it will place the axis of the new object at 0, 0, 0. So keep that in mind for whenever you do this operation. Okay, so also I want to show you how to deal with these guys, because we got the teeth and then the eyes. We need to split those up so we can make the upper teeth children of the head, lower teeth children of the jaw, etc. So let's select this teeth there. Teeth and gums. Looks like we need to merge these two guys first. Connect and delete. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to go into polygon picking mode here. Okay. So let's go to the left mode, left view. Alright. Let's do a lasso selection and make sure to turn this off. Go back to polygon mode and just select the entire lower teeth there. And copy, paste. So in theory, here's the old teeth here. We can hide those. Alright, it looks like I'm pretty sure this is hidden now. It looks like the new one, it copied the entire object. So I guess when you copy, it just copies the object. So I will delete these polygons that I have currently selected. Okay, of course you can see it gets all messed up, but it'll render fine. So we'll call this teeth upper. And hide, unhide, go to this one, select, invert, because I had the lower teeth selected. I do this and all the opposite. All the unselected polygons are now selected. Edit, delete. Alright, so I'll rename this teeth lower. Alright. Now the problem is the axis for this and the other teeth are way down at, no, not you, are way down at ground zero. So what I'll do is select all the polygons again, teeth lower, and go to axis center. Here we go. This little tool, axis center, will put the axis in the center of my selection. Execute. Go away. Alright, so if I go back to object mode here, you could see, well, I wouldn't call that center, but you can always modify it. and you might want to drop a keyframe just to be sure. Maybe even freeze your coordinates. And drop a keyframe just to be sure it doesn't jump somewhere. Let's do the same thing. Let's try it with just selecting the object. Axis center, execute. There we go. And I will modify that a little bit. That's what I call center. Freeze all, key. Okay, there we go. Moving on. Eyeballs. Okay, so now for this guy, yeah, remember I said that it splits up the polygons, the surfaces into separate objects? Well, that's a problem here because of this. Let's go to the perspective view. This is going to be fun. Oh, okay, there it is. Okay. So, yeah, there it is. Remember that just ignore the fact that these polygons look all weird. That's just a thing with Cinema, and it'll render fine, even though it looks funky here. Okay, so the problem is that the pupil, the cornea, which is the color part here, and the eyeball were all split up into different objects because they have different surface names. So I need to grab all of those and do the connect and delete thing. So pupil, eyeball, cornea. Connect objects and delete. Okay. Now, the next problem is that I left that eyeball down there at the bottom just in case you would need it, because that way it lines up with 0, 0, 0 in case you wanted to reposition it. But it turns out it's really not necessary because these eyeballs are don't have the concave bits in the front. I kept them simple. So when we do the center command, axis center, it will put it directly in the middle of the eyeball, so we don't have to move it. So this will make things a little simpler for you. So let's rename this and copy and paste. So we'll say eyeball left and eyeball right. Now, let's hide that. Select these guys here. Select, invert selection, and delete. There we go. Once again, it's drawing it weird. Alright, so now with this selected here, well, there's two problems. We'll deal with the first one. This is the easy one. There it is. Okay. Oh, I just realized there's another problem here. When I delete those polygons, the points are still there. So I need to first optimize the model. Let me show you. See, the points are still there. So if you go to Mesh, Commands, Optimize, it will delete the points that do not belong to any polygons. Now we can do the axis center. Okay, much better. Alright, now well, yeah, we were going to use the optimize command to fix the other problem, because when we merge those objects up, they were not connected, but now they are connected because of optimize. It looks very strange, but I think if I hit my render button, it should look fine. No, it doesn't look so fine. Alright, now I'm going to pause the video while I investigate what's going on here. Okay, I don't know what its problem is, but I can't get this thing looking good. I've tried various tools and operations, and it's just staying messy. So here's what I'm going to do. got the object here, the eyeball. I'm going to go into coordinates, and I'm going to jot down all this information. Well, I'm going to copy it and paste it into Notepad. Okay. I'm going to make a new object. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm going to make a new sphere. And I'm going to paste those positions into my new sphere and just make a new eyeball because it's being difficult. Now I just need to shrink it down because it's huge. Scaling has no effect on this stuff yet, not until you hit this button to make it editable, so that's cool. Oops. Something's happening wrong. Oh, I think I cloned my ball. Sorry if that sounded dirty, I didn't mean to. Let's delete this. Delete without children. Let's try that again. There we go. Let's get in there, getting close, and just basically make them the same size. Something like that. And I know this is more of a modeling thing, but sometimes the job of a rigger is to wear multiple hats. Object, segments. I'm going to hide my other ball, the original eyeball. Let's put this on wireframe mode. Okay, it's going to have to be rotated, but yeah, we could do that now. 90. Again, doing this here does mess it up. Okay, I just saw that the axis just changed up. So I'll rotate the points later. I just wanted to increase the number of segments. So now we have enough to make a little cornea and eyeball with. Let's increase it a little more. Yeah, I think that's good. Keep in mind that in this program you only have the single number, which affects all of the polygons of the eyeball. In Lightwave you can change how many latitude versus longitude segments you're working with, but here we don't have that choice. So you can see now, if I put this in wireframe view, that we can pretty much get a one-for-one size on there. Except that orange outline helps to make things a little more obscure, so we might need to go back to this view. See how the polygons kind of travel from the side to the top? That's giving me a hint that these are not exactly in the same place, but it's close enough. Let's just do it right there and call it good. I think it should be fine. So now I'll hit that Make Editable button. Delete the old eyeball. And this one too. Delete without children. Select the points of the sphere. Select all. Rotate that 90 degrees on the pitch. So sorry I have to do that, but sometimes cinema is just difficult, as you are well aware. Of course, you know, to be fair, any program is going to be difficult now and again. It's just that different programs are difficult at different times. All right. So now, going back to object mode, everything should look good here. The only changes we have are right here, which is fine. Let's freeze that, set a keyframe. Make sure you're on frame 0 when you're setting your keyframes, and rename that to eyeball. Left. And let's copy and paste that. Copy, paste. Sorry, I did it off screen. Let's call that eyeball right. And we simply change the negative to a positive on the X. And now we have an eyeball on the other side of the face. Very nice. Okay. I guess while I'm here, I'll just quickly show you how you can apply the different surfaces. So let's go to polygon mode. I'm going to go to UL, which lets me select loops. And I got those 2 loops selected of polygons. Sorry, I didn't show you. I am in polygon mode here. So with those 2 loops there selected, I can go to the cornea texture material and just say apply. And if I double click on this, make it a color other than gray, you can now see it's showing up there. So let's select that one, pupil, function, apply, double click on that, make that black, turn the specularity off. Well, since we're not going to deal with an actual lens, we'll leave the specularity on. Maybe just tighten it up a little bit. Yeah, do the same thing on the cornea. That makes it a little more wet looking. Actually, I might just copy that, paste it on there. That didn't work. Never mind. Oh, okay, I can copy them here. Copy. Paste. Oh, okay, great, didn't work. Let's see now here. I'm going to shift click. Got that. Now I go to select, invert selection, eyeball, function, apply. Of course, the eyeball would also have the tight hotspot, and the color would be white. Just to keep things simple, this is not a texturing class. Alright, there we go. Simple eyeball. We should probably just copy that to the other one, so we don't have to deal with that twice. Delete without children. Hey, where's my axis? Oh, there it is. Copy, paste, reverse the polarity here. There we go. Okay, good. Now we're ready to rock and roll. Let's unhide the skin. He's looking better. He still looks sleepy, but that's because I modeled his eyelids that way. And we got the shorts and the skin all merged up. Alright, we're ready to go. So that concludes one section. Let's move on to going over some of the observations I made in the neck after this edit. Okay, this next segment, I wanted to simply show you that what I said in class, my suspicion that the priority thing worked as I was thinking it would work in my head. I wanted to basically show you with evidence that it does work. You can see that I've created a partial neck rig. I basically have the nulls going up the neck. I didn't put the joints in the middle because that just deals with twisting, and that's not really relevant for what I'm showing you here. Basically, as I scrub through the animation, you can see first the neck bends forward, and these things, let me make these a little easier to see. So, as I scrub through here, you can see that the head model, head start, which has a PSR constraint to put it in the same position as neck 4, is not following it because this guy, neck 3, is lining up with the head controller's rotation at 50% strength, just like we talked about in the video, which is expected. Now to fix that, I want to tell it to first do the neck thing and then do the head. Tell this to follow the position of this guy first. So we basically can dictate the order. So this, the rotation of this, I think my little keystroke to move my recorder is affecting the selection process. Where did the priority go? Probably right here. Priority. Okay. Now you may remember in the video we were playing with this stuff, but you could leave that alone. What I found out is basically you just change this number here, 10. I set this to the priority number of 10, and so the higher the number, the opposite of what I thought in the initial video because of a brain fart, but the higher number will get calculated first. So we get the neck thing here solved first, and then later this thing up here, the position will be solved. So if I scrub through now, it's not ready yet. Okay, hang on, what am I forgetting here? Maybe I have it backwards. Maybe I want the head to do it first. I thought it would be this way. Set that to 0. And set this one to 10. See what that does. Oh, that works. Okay, so I had it backwards. So the trick is the position constraint on your head should happen before this thing is done. So the 50% rotation of the head controller, which is this big box here. So now it works. That's nice. So I scrub through, you can see we have the neck bending forward. Now I have the head control rotating, and so you can see that affects the rotation of the head joint, and this one is also doing half as much as whatever this is doing. So everything works great. Of course, you add the next layer of complexity on this with the joints going up the middle of the neck, as noted in the video. That would twist along with whatever this one's doing when you add the twisting note here. So that's basically it for that section. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, one thing I talked about in class was the issue of locking your geometry. You may notice that I made a geometry null, and all the geometry is a child of that. Of course, eventually the eyeballs will be a child of the head, and and the teeth will be child of the head and the jaw and stuff like that, but I just threw it all in there for now. But okay, what I commented on is a little thing that could be a nice time saver. If I can get this, oh, it's because I'm in polygon mode, that's what the problem is. Yeah, okay, yeah, so the problem is when I'm clicking around here, sometimes I'm clicking on something inside, sometimes I'm clicking on the model, the geometry. So the way to solve that is go here where the skin is and right click here. Now let's left click. Yeah, add to new layer. So you can see now this turns to a color. And oh, that was pretty wild. Yeah, my little keystroke to move around the viewport here is triggering some kind of command in Cinema. That's why it's causing weirdness. But you can see in the little layers tab here, this is the new layer. You can see it's orange, and I could rename this to geometry. It could be whatever you want, really. And so we have a number of different options, but the one to look at right now is the padlock. So now with the key, the skin locked, I can no longer select it. So now every time I click on this stuff inside of his head, it's always going to select the stuff inside of his head, never the geometry of his skin. So that's a nice little time saver there. Okay, the next thing I want to show you was that early in the class I told you to add a null for your mover model, which is perfectly acceptable and it works, but it is a little tiny axis, and you could go into the axis and tell it to draw it different ways. There it is, dot, change that to a rectangle or whatever, but you could also add this stuff to it. Go into here and add some vectors to your models, to your nulls. Let's expand this here. So let's say we want to add a rectangle, and we have to go in here to there, put that flat on the ground like that. Hey. Okay. There's a rectangle. Scale that down. And let's do something like this. I'm doing this specifically so we can see what the result would be for doing something you cannot do simply by modifying the object. So we've created an object that is off-center from the null, just like we were doing with the knuckles, another part of the class. Okay, so there's that. That looks good. Now, the one problem with this is I cannot simply click, shift-click, and choose Connect Objects and Delete, because it's ghosted. Actually, it's ghosted because it got deselected. I don't know why. Notice it's selecting all this stuff, all this child stuff. So when you do Connect Object and Delete, you lose all that. So that's not good. So one solution would be rename this to Mover and put all this stuff under there. Which works, but it might not be so easy when you have a null that's somewhere else in your model other than at ground zero here. So the trick would be to edit your geometry, put it where you want for manipulating the null, and then go in your coordinates, copy it to Notepad, and then of the null you want to replace. and then paste that information into the axis. Make sure you click this and then edit the axis, paste the values in there so that it has the same position and rotation as the element you want to replace, and then there you go, just swap it out. So yeah, you could just use that to add some enhancements to your rig should you choose to. Okay, next thing I want to look at a couple of things in the ARM rig and show you two main things here. First of all, I wanted to further clarify the hand. We went over this in class, but I'm going to show you even more clear how this thing works. Okay, so the hand starter null and guy hand, these guys are separate because they are using constraints to position to the follow position the end of the hand, which would be this guy right here, arm lower 2. And the reason why we're splitting these guys up, let me lock this again. Okay. And maybe go to that view. That's better. Alright, I made a little animation here. And maybe this is better for now. Okay. So you can see that this joint here, the second half of the lower arm, is following the twist of the hand. I actually said in class that this should be doing 50% of the twist, but that was a mistake. It should be doing 100%, and then using your weight painting, you would dissolve the influence between these two joints going down the length of the forearm, the lower arm. So like right in the middle here, this cross section going down the middle would be 50% for each joint. And then you would taper that off. I didn't taper it off for this because I did it real quick. I just selected them all and bound them. But you could see, because I did paint 50% here, there is a fairly nice transition down the length of the forearm. So the reason why that this hand is separate is because we have to avoid an interdependence loop. This joint right here is looking at the twist of this one. So this cannot be a child of this, otherwise you would have an interdependence loop. And so this hand has to have a null at the start of it because of the way joints go. You know, if the joint is not a child of the null, it's a child of another joint, it'll draw a joint from one joint to the other, as you've observed in the class. So I wanted to show you up here, this area here, I wanted to show you the protection tag. So we know that this is the arm swing guy, and his mission in life is only to rotate on this one axis. So you could just be careful and only use this axis, or you could go here into tags, not the character tags, but right here, this tag, the Cinema 4D tags, and choose protection. And that brings up a little Ghostbusters thing here. And so you can see the interface is very simple. It's locked everything off, and basically I'm just going to turn off the bank. So now when I pick this, you can see that the colors of every ring except for the blue ring are dim, and that just gives you a little visual feedback saying that you can only rotate on this. And excuse the whole body should be rotating. It's just because the only joints in the nut is in the rig is in the arm. And then do the same thing for this one if you want to. The header, tags, caret. You don't have to do this. It's just if you want it to be pretty and a little more foolproof. There we go. So you can see now we can only rotate. And so if I grab outside, it's only going to rotate on that one axis. Before, the only way to ensure you only rotate on the y-axis is to grab the actual band. So you highlight it, it highlights white, and then you can grab it. Now you know you're locked on that one axis. But before, if you grab out here, it would rotate any old way, except with the protection thing. Now it's only rotating on the one axis. So the problem is we have to rearrange things a little bit from how I stated in the earlier video, and that's just because I wasn't fully aware of how IK works in Cinema. In Lightwave, when you do this kind of thing with the protection tag, the Lightwave version of that, and you go down the chain and you say, okay, you only use this axis for this one, this axis for this one axis for this one, it will figure out the inverse kinematics with the remaining axes. But for Cinema, that's not the case. So what that means is, before, I had you start the IK here on the header. Don't do that anymore. Start the IK here. Okay. So what that means is, let's just go ahead and set it up real quick. Oh, here it is. Duh. Okay. So what that means is, this joint that we formerly would only rotate on the pitch, this band right here, right there, will be free to rotate on any axis the IK needs for doing its IK business. So what that means is also further, in addition to, is when you transition from IK to FK, you will animate the values in here, the rotations. So you'll probably see just changes on the heading and bank most likely. Possibly the bank, heading and pitch, possibly the bank as well. You will rotate those back to 0 as you transition to FK. Normally when you do a transition from FK, you would say start on frame 30, you're fully IK here, and then 35, you're fully IK. And it will do a otherwise you might see a pop when it switches, because you know, there might be slight deviations between your IK keyframes and the IK position of your goal. So if we're going from 30 to 35, set a keyframe for whatever it is here, and then on frame 35 these would all be zeroed out, except for maybe the pitch, because that's what we do with this bone. This is designed when you're animating on FK only, you only rotate on the pitch. So this can be whatever it needs to be, but all the others should transition to 0. Okay, and again, this thing is bank only. If you apply the protection tag to that, it may or may not mess up the IK. I don't know. But I was demonstrating in class that if I put the protection tag on here, I might as well just do it. Tag, Cinema tag, protection. So if I say, okay, only pitch on that guy, and I put the IK up here, and we specify our goal and all that stuff. That would be here, and then the end of the IK chain would be right there. Okay, so this isn't going to work. So you can see, I might have to zoom in. Yeah, you can definitely see it here, but even in here, it's not following it exactly. Let's zoom in closer. There are deviations between where the actual end of the arm is and where the goal is. And that's because this thing is locking it off. So it's staying at 0 because of the way we locked it, but the IK solver is saying, yeah, throw a value of whatever on heading and bank, or heading and pitch, or whatever it needs to be. So the IK is blind to what this is doing. So it's not quite as intelligent as some other programs you may use. So the solution for that is to not use this here. Put the IK down here, and now everything's fine. It stays where it's supposed to be. Ignore his leg. I don't have any joints in his leg. That's why it's all messed up down there. So that is the protection tag. It's handy, but you have to use caution when working around inverse kinematics. Basically, you would not want to use it within the inverse kinematics. Let's stick it in here, see what happens. Tag, protection. Because this is in the middle of a joint, it might be okay. Because it's probably favoring this guy. Nope, it's still causing problems. So yeah, you can't use protection anywhere inside IK. Oop, and now it's fine. That's an unfortunate look for this guy. Okay, so that's it for this guy. Let's move on. Okay, the only other thing that we talked about that I have in my notes here is to review the hierarchy situation. Okay, the mover, let's make him white. The root, let's make him also white. There. Okay. The mover. The mover is called the mover because we use it to move the entire rig. So notice when I'm moving it around, the IK controllers, everybody follows the mover. So that's the top of your hierarchy. The next step down will be your IK controllers. So this would be a child of the mover. Your pole vectors would be a child of the mover. Unless some people like to put their pole vectors for the knees as a child of the foot control, so that if you rotate your foot on the heel, the pole vector will follow whatever your foot is doing. Basically, your knee will aim whichever way your foot is pointing, and that's kind of a shortcut. You can do that if you want it. It's up to you. It gives you an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is it's a shortcut, so you can just rotate and animate your foot controller. The knee will follow along with whatever your foot is doing, but you do lose the ability to independently rotate your knees if you wanted to keep your feet planted on the ground and then rotate them, or transversely keep your knees pointed in one location while you wiggle your feet. It would be working against you if that was a child of the foot. So it depends on what your scene is and what your intentions are, how you want to work. That's up to you, whether your pole vector is a child of the foot or it's a child of the mover. Okay, so the mover gets the hand and the pole vectors and the root. The root has the spline branching off of it, and the two ring guys that you add for that rig. I didn't add that for this because I'm just putting this together as we go. And of course the arms branch off. You might want to, at the end of your little spine, you may recall it's just a little short section of joints. You may want to add a second joint going all the way up here. So that way when you bind your geometry to the joints, it will grab that geometry and might make your weight painting a little simpler, quicker, but probably not. It's still tedious no matter how you slice it, as you'll see in the video. Yeah, and then I think that's about it. Obviously the neck is a child of the head. I mean, excuse me, the neck is a child of the spine. The head has to remain detached because of the fancy stuff we're doing there, so that could be a child of the mover as well, or it could be a child of the main character. You might want to make a null and just say guy character, put the mover as a child of that, put the geometry as a child of that. That way you can close up that null and everything would disappear. So it just cleans up your entire rig. And I see I have a redundant mover null from earlier. I left a mess there. Anyway, yeah. So if you have questions, let me know. Keep in mind you can reach me faster on my website. I check my website's email minute by minute, basically. Yeah. So I'll see you. Oh, and yeah, your assignment for the weight painting, finishing up the rig. It's very important that you get that rig done and working well, including your jaw, including the eyelids. Leave the eyebrows for later. We'll talk about that later. But get everything else working, functioning well, standing up to your tests, so that once you do your weight painting, you don't have to do it twice. Believe me, once you watch that video, you will appreciate that advice. So get your rig working, get it functioning, get it bulletproof, and then move on to your weight painting. And I'm giving you, extended amount of time. Basically, at the end of the spring break, that following Wednesday, the weight painted rig will be due, but I haven't posted that yet. And I will be seeing you. Good luck.